You ever hear a lawyer scream at a chief executive officer in the middle of a board meeting? I have. I was not in the room that morning, but every voice carried down the hallway as if the walls themselves wanted me to hear what happened after I walked out of that company for good. Howard Lang, the firm's corporate attorney, slammed something heavy onto the conference table and yelled, "You fired her! Have you lost your mind?" Gavin chairs scraped. Someone gasped. Another person muttered, "Oh no, not her." Then Howard's voice rose again. "You did not just remove the only systems architect tied to our compliance contract. Do you understand what you have done?" I pictured the scene in my mind even before someone texted me about it, the board staring at one another, the investors frozen, and Gavin Thorne, the man who liked to call himself a visionary, blinking like he had just been hit between the eyes. His son Evan would have been beside him, silent for once, probably as pale as printer paper. Howard kept going. "She held licensing authority. She maintained the audit chain, and you let your ego walk her right out the door." I leaned back in my chair when I read the message. Just yesterday, Gavin had looked down at me like I was disposable. Now a room full of people was learning what he had refused to see. Another message arrived, Howard's still shouting. "They're scrambling." I let the phone rest on the kitchen counter. My apartment in Seattle's Capitol Hill district felt unusually quiet, the kind of quiet that settles after a storm passes and leaves the air strangely clean. I wrapped my hands around a lukewarm cup of coffee and tried to catch up with the reality unfolding without me. If you had told me yesterday that a lawyer would be shouting my name in a boardroom, I would have laughed. Because only 48 hours ago, I was being forced to apologize to the chief executive officer's son in the middle of my pitch. Back then, I still believed keeping my head down would keep me safe. I understand now that everything started long before that meeting, long before the yelling, long before the fallout, 2 days earlier. I stood in a conference room with my slides open and my hopes still intact. That was the moment everything began to unravel. Why do the biggest moments of our careers always seem to attract the worst people? 2 days before the lawyer's outburst, I walked into conference room 4 with my laptop tucked under my arm and 6 months of work ready to breathe its first real air. My proposal was supposed to be the turning point not just for the company, but for me. A chance to finally step out of the shadows and show what I had been quietly building. Evan Thorne was already in the room, leaning back in his chair like he owned the oxygen. "Morning. Maris," he said without looking up from his phone. "Do you want to set up the display for me? I added a few thoughts to your slides." I kept my voice steady. "I can load my deck. Evan, let's go through my structure first." He laughed under his breath. "Sure. Just remember, the executive team responds better when things sound modern." A few engineers exchanged uncomfortable glances. They knew what modern meant to Evan buzzwords strung together like Christmas lights. No power source, just glow. I opened the pitch. "All right. Our data risk restructuring follows 3 stages. Actually," Evan cut in, "I think 5 stages would sound more strategic, like a roadmap." "It is a roadmap," I replied. 3 stages. Precision matters." He shrugged. "Hey, you do you. But if the board looks confused, I will have to jump in." The tension in the room tightened. Someone cleared his throat. Another tapped a pen. I kept speaking, pushing through each interruption. When I explained the projected reduction in error flags, Evan snapped his fingers. "Hold on. Say that again, but simpler. Imagine you're explaining it to someone who isn't technical." I met his eyes. "Everyone in this room is technical." He smirked. "Still, you never know who might walk in." I steadied myself, even as irritation scraped at the edges of my voice. I had survived worse. I could survive, Evan. I turned back to the screen. As I was saying, the door behind me slammed open so hard it shook the wall. Every person in the room stopped breathing. Gavin Thorne stood in the doorway, face burning, chest heaving, staring directly at me. Have you ever felt humiliation hit so fast you did not even recognize your own voice? The moment Gavin Thorne filled the doorway, the temperature in the room dropped. His tie was crooked, his jaw clenched, and his eyes locked straight onto me as if I had personally set the building on fire. "Maris Holden," he barked. "Stand up." My hands froze on the laptop. Evan straightened in his chair, suddenly very alert. I rose slowly. "Is something wrong?" Gavin took 2 quick steps toward me, breathing hard. "You think you can disrespect my son and still lead this project?" My stomach tightened. "I have no idea what you're referring to." "Do not lie to me," he snapped. "Evan told me everything. You humiliated him yesterday. You belittled his position in front of staff." Evan lifted his hands. "Dad," I tried to let it go, but I turned toward him. "You came to my desk uninvited and rewrote my work. I asked you to wait until the meeting." Gavin slammed his palm against the wall. "You will apologize. Right now." A ripple of panic moved across the room. Malik, one of the software leads, stood up quickly. "Sir, we are in the middle of a presentation." Gavin shoved past him. "This is my company, and she will apologize." I felt every set of eyes on me. The pressure pressed against my throat. Evan watched me with a tiny, satisfied tilt of his mouth. My voice cracked. "Gavin, I did not disrespect anyone." "You will apologize," he repeated, stepping so close I could feel the heat of his anger. Malik reached toward him again, trying to calm him down, but Gavin jerked his arm away. "Do it, or you are off this project, permanently." The room spun. Someone whispered my name. Someone else muttered to stop. My legs locked beneath me. "Yes, sir," I heard myself say, a voice too small to belong to me. "I am sorry." Silence swallowed everything. Gavin let out a harsh breath and walked out, the echo of his anger trailing behind him. Evan leaned back with a slow smirk, as if he had just won something precious. My dignity felt like it had shattered on the floor where I stood. What breaks first, the body, or the self-respect holding it together? I locked myself in the restroom and gripped the edge of the sink until my hands hurt. My breath was uneven. My throat burned. Every time I blinked, I saw it again the moment Gavin stepped toward me, the way Malik tried to stop him, the smug little curl at the corner of Evan's mouth. I pressed my palms against my eyes. Why did I say it? My voice trembled. Why did I let him force it out of me? A message buzzed on my phone. "Malik, I saw everything. I am so sorry." I tried to stop him. Another message came from Jenna, one of the analysts. "Jenna." He was out of control. "Maris." None of us knew what to do. Then another. "Nate. Please do not tell anyone I texted, but what he did was wrong." 3 messages, 3 apologies, 3 people too afraid to stand up out loud. I slid down the wall, knees pulled to my chest. Their words should have helped, but instead they made something inside me collapse. If even the witnesses were terrified, what chance did I have staying under the Thorne's thumb? My phone buzzed again. "Evan, hope we can reset after today. I know things got heated, but I want us aligned." I stared at the screen. No apology, no accountability, just entitlement wrapped in fake diplomacy. I left the restroom without answering. I walked past desks and hushed conversations, past people who pretended not to stare at me. My hands still shook, but a cold steadiness settled behind the tremor. I had crossed a line I swore I never would. I had let someone strip my dignity in public, and I had stood there, silent. That evening, in my small Capitol Hill apartment, I didn't cook or turn on the lights. I sat on the edge of my bed with my coat still on, letting the quiet fill the room. The truth I had been avoiding finally broke open inside me. If I stayed, Gavin would do it again, and again, and again, and each time it would carve out another piece of me. I felt something shift, small but absolute. My self-respect had finally woken up. Have you ever walked away so quietly that even the walls forgot your name? I returned to the office long after everyone had gone home. The hallways were dim, but the silence felt steadier than anything I had heard all day. I swiped my badge at the door, knowing it might be the last time it ever lit green. My desk waited exactly the way I had left it. Laptop open, notes scattered, a mug half finished with cold tea. I sat down and opened the internal dashboard. The first thing I did was back up every piece of documentation I had spent half a year building. No shortcuts, no missing files. Everything placed carefully in the designated archive folder, exactly where it belonged. When I finished, I forwarded each responsibility to the appropriate team leads. I wrote short, neutral instructions. No emotion, no burn marks, just clean transitions. Then I opened my access panel. My heartbeat thudded once as I hovered over the command, and then I clicked. Revoke access Maris Holden. The confirmation window blinked. Access removed. Good, I whispered. No one can twist anything now. I pulled out a small cardboard box from under the desk, one by one. I packed the objects that had lived with me for years, a mechanical pencil, a notepad with my mother's handwriting on the first page, an old badge from my first year. Nothing else mattered. I opened the team workspace and deleted my ID from every channel, every shared board, every permissions list. My name vanished from each section with a soft click. No trace, no shadow. When everything was clean, I typed my resignation into a blank email, effective immediately. I will not be returning. 2 sentences. That was all it needed. I hit send. For a moment, I just sat there, hands in my lap, listening to the hum of the empty floor. Then I picked up the box, stood, and walked out. The night air outside Seattle's downtown district hit my face, cool and quiet. I held the box against my chest and started walking, each step pulling me farther from a place that had stolen too much from me already. How fast does a system fall apart once the wrong person disappears? By the time I woke up the next morning, my phone was shaking with notifications. I blinked at the screen. Dozens of missed messages from coworkers, all time-stamped before sunrise. Jenna Maris. The core module will not start. Everything is failing. Nate access credentials keep bouncing. No one can authenticate anything. Malik audit chains are broken. Investors are already asking for an emergency update. I rubbed my eyes, trying to absorb the chaos. I had expected confusion. I had not expected collapse. A voicemail from Malik played next. His voice shook. They cannot run the system without you. The architecture is too old, too customized. No one has your permissions. No one knows the internal logic. Then, silence. I set the phone down and breathed slowly. Not out of triumph or revenge, just disbelief at how fragile everything had been behind the facade of corporate confidence. Half an hour later, another message appeared. Jenna Howard is here. It is ugly. They are dragging everyone into a meeting. I imagined the boardroom, the long table, the rows of seats, a room built for calm decisions now vibrating with panic. I put the kettle on, letting the noise fill the kitchen while I leaned against the counter. A new text arrived. Malik again. Malik. You need to hear this. I am recording audio. The clip played immediately. A door slammed. Howard Lang's voice exploded across the line. You fired her, have you lost your mind? Gavin. A chorus of shocked murmurs followed. Howard continued, every word sharper than the last. She held licensing authority on the entire risk management module. She maintained the compliance chain. You cannot touch this system without her consent. You have violated at least 3 major clauses. Someone from the board cut in, panicked. Howard, tell us what this means. It means, he snapped, that you terminated the only person legally tied to the system you are still using, and now the investors know. The room erupted, voices overlapping, chairs scraping, someone swearing under their breath. Malik whispered into the microphone. "This is going to get worse." I stood in my quiet apartment, the kettle still whistling behind me, listening to a room full of powerful people realize what they had done. What does it sound like when powerful men start begging? By noon, my phone had rung so many times the vibration felt like an alarm I could not shut off. The caller ID flashed the same name again and again. Gavin Thorne. I let it ring. Then ring again. Then again. A voicemail came through. His voice was tight, forced calm over panic. "Maris, we need to discuss yesterday's decision. Call me back." Another followed minutes later. "Maris, this is urgent. The board is asking questions. Pick up your phone." Then a third. "Maris, I am trying to fix this. Do not make this difficult." I sat at my small kitchen table with a cup of tea and listened to each one without emotion. I had nothing left to give that man, not fear, not anger, not forgiveness. My email chimed. "Evan, I know things escalated. I should not have pushed so hard. Let's reset and talk this out. I value your input." I snorted. "You value control." I muttered. Another message arrived seconds later. "Evan, if you help us stabilize the system, I will personally make sure you're credited." I closed the email. Even his apologies were wrapped in self-preservation. Then the quiet texts came. "Jenna Maris, please, if you do not help, the investors will pull the project. Nate, they are saying the system may be shut down. Everyone is terrified. Malik, I know you owe them nothing, but they are falling apart." I pressed the heel of my hand to my forehead. Their fear pressed against me, but for the first time in years, the anxiety was not mine. I felt calm, steady in a way I had not known was possible. Peace was not a luxury. It was a boundary. My phone buzzed again. A number I did not recognize. I answered cautiously. "This is Maris." A clear, confident voice replied. "Ms. Holden, this is Dr. Renford from Cascade Health. We are your firm's largest client. We need to speak with you directly." I straightened in my chair, pulse tightening. He did not call the company. He called me. What if the door you thought you needed was not the only door after all? "Ms. Holden," Dr. Renford said, "I will be direct. Your former firm has been assuring us that their system is stable. It is not. We now know you were the architect behind every functioning component." I held the phone tighter. I wrote the structure. "Yes, but I am no longer with them. That is why I am calling you personally." He replied, "We stayed with their company because of your work, not because of theirs. We want you to consult for us independently. Full authority, full oversight." The words landed like a door opening I had never dared to imagine. He continued, "We are prepared to offer compensation at twice your previous salary. More importantly, we want the system in the hands of the person who actually built it." For a moment, I could not speak. All I managed was, "You trust me that much. We trusted you long before the Thorns realized they should have." His tone softened. "And we prefer to work with professionals who do not weaponize their own staff." I exhaled slowly. "Send me the details. I will review everything tonight." When I hung up, my heart was pounding, not with fear, but with something I had forgotten existed. Recognition, respect, worth. Another buzz lit my phone. A message from Malik Gavin is in a board meeting. He is telling them he can fix everything if they give him time. A second later, the board looks furious. People are saying they have already contacted outside counsel. I set the phone down and let the weight of my decision settle. I was not going back. Not as an employee, not as a consultant, not in any capacity that tied me to men who believed humiliation counted as leadership. My future no longer belonged to the Thorns. Can arrogance survive exposure? By the end of the week, the investigation was no longer a rumor. It was an avalanche. Malik forwarded me a copy of the internal memo, his message brief. You should see this. The report was brutal in its precision. Evan had manipulated progress summaries to inflate his contributions. Gavin had bypassed standard protocols, overridden administrative barriers, and ordered undocumented changes to the compliance chain. Several board members demanded answers, and for the first time, neither father nor son had anything to hide behind. During the emergency session, Gavin tried to blame miscommunication. The board cut him off. You abused your authority, one member said, and your decisions jeopardized a multi-million-dollar contract. Another voice added, your son altered reports. He had no clearance to do so. Evan stammered, I was trying to help. You were trying to look competent. Someone replied. The verdict was delivered that same afternoon. Gavin Thorne would resign effective immediately. Evan Thorne would be reassigned to a non-managerial position with no decision-making privileges. Their downfall did not come with fireworks or shouting. It came in quiet signatures and closed doors, the same kind of silence I had walked out with. By the time the news spread through the company, the Thornes were no longer feared. They were simply gone. What if the softest kind of revenge is simply walking away better? I started the consulting role at the beginning of the next week. No ceremony, no onboarding lectures, no Evan breathing down my neck. Just a straightforward call from Cascade Health, a signed contract, and a clear understanding of what they expected from me: honesty, precision, and competence. Work on your schedule, Dr. Renford said during our first meeting. We trust your judgment. It stunned me more than it should have. Trust had become so foreign under the Thornes that hearing it spoken out loud felt almost unreal. I found a small workspace to rent a few blocks from Pike Place Market, one room, a desk, and a window overlooking Elliott Bay. When I told the leasing manager I would take it, she handed me the key and smiled. It's yours whenever you want to breathe. I placed my laptop on the desk, opened my notes, and breathed easier than I had in years. No board members watching, no forced apologies, no threats disguised as leadership, just my work, my pace, my voice. Cascade Health called every few days to check in. Each conversation was simple, respectful, professional. Thank you, Ms. Holden, they would say when we finished. Your clarity saves us hours. I never bragged about what happened at my old company. I never mentioned the Thornes. I never repeated the details of the collapse that followed my resignation. I did not need to. I lived better. That was enough. Late one evening, as the sun fell behind the water, I closed my laptop and whispered to myself, some bridges burn for a reason, and sometimes the fire behind you is exactly what lights the path ahead. If you were forced to apologize for the truth, how long would it take before you finally walk away?